Secret Life of Pets is the new animated film from Illumination Entertainment, and it focuses on the idea of what do our pets do while we're away. This movie does that by following a character named Max, voiced by Louis C.K. He's a terrier dog who has the best relationship with his owner, Katie. He thinks nothing can go wrong. They have the best friendship in the world. Nothing can go wrong for this guy. Until she brings home a bigger dog named Duke, voiced by Eric Stonestreet, and he's starting to invade on his territory, and Max doesn't like this. He wants him to leave. And after some shenanigans that happen, they both end up losing their collars, and they end up on the run from the pound. So they need to team up in order to get back home before Katie finds out that they're gone. Now, I did not know what to expect going into this movie. On the one hand, the trailers were fine. I think my least favorite one was the first one, because that was pretty much just silly animals acting like fools the whole time, and I thought, oh, please don't tell me this is how the movie's gonna be. And also, Illumination Entertainment is kind of a mixed bag for me. As much as I really do enjoy the Despicable Me movies, I found the Minions movie to be just okay. Then you have the movies The Lorax and Hop, two movies they made, and I really hate. So I did not know what to expect with this movie, and walking out, it was kind of mediocre in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, young kids will probably end up loving this movie. I saw this movie with a theater filled with mainly younger kids, and I could tell they were loving the movie. They were laughing at everything going on screen. You could just tell that they ended up loving the movie, and that's fine. This movie is more of a kid's film. I don't think parents are going to end up hating themselves while watching this film. It's going to be better for kids. They're going to get the better experience. But there are things to like about this movie. For one thing, the voice cast is very good. Two in particular, Max and Duke, voiced by Louis C.K. and Eric Stonestreet. I thought these two were really good. They had good chemistry with each other, and they were, in my opinion, the most likable characters. And Duke, in particular, he was really good in this movie. They actually fleshed out his character in a way that I did not expect them to, and I actually really enjoyed that. It made for a more interesting character. Another character I enjoyed was Gidget, voiced by Jenny Slate, who is the lamb in Zootopia earlier this year. I thought she was also surprisingly entertaining in this film, and she was by far the best part of her subplot. More on that later. I don't think anyone can complain about the animation in this movie. It is astounding to look at. Not just New York City itself, because that also looks good, but also the design for the pets. The hairs on them look extremely good, especially Duke. The hair on him looks really good, and the designs of other things, like a giant snake that shows up in the middle of the movie that freaked me out, because if you remember in my Jungle Book review I mentioned that the Ka scene was kind of hard to watch because I have a fear of snakes, and in this movie that thing gets close up to the screen too, so yeah. And the score for this movie was actually really good to listen to. Usually I don't mention them because it takes a really, really good score for me to actually promote it, like Star Wars The Force Awakens. That had an amazing score by John Williams, so I had to talk about it. And in this movie, they have a really, really good score here. And no surprise, Alexander Desplat did it. He's done a bunch of really good scores in the past, and he's about to do the Star Wars Rogue One score, so that's freaking amazing. So I did find some enjoyable things in this film. However, let's shift into the cons of this movie. Now, if you noticed, I only mentioned 3 characters at the beginning, saying that I found them really entertaining, because the other characters in this movie I found to be kind of disposable. There's one character that could have been really cool. They set him up very well. It's a hawk voiced by Albert Brooks, Marlin from Finding Nemo, and it's this hawk named Tiberius who's trying to resist eating other pets. After they set up this character, he pretty much is just there for the rest of the movie. He didn't really have that much to do. Pops is an older dog who's paralyzed, voiced by Garth from Wayne's World, aka Dana Carvey. I thought from the trailers maybe this guy can be the highlight of the movie. Actually, he also doesn't really have that much to do. The main joke with this character is pretty much just he's old. Haha. You have Buddy, Mel, Chloe, a bird named Sweet Pea, and some hamster, and I also just couldn't get behind those characters either. And these characters fill up the whole subplot that I mentioned earlier. Gidget rallies these animals together to help her find Max and Duke, and only having one character you care about in a subplot does not make me more interested in that subplot, because then you have all these other animals behind her that you're supposed to like, but I just couldn't really like them. I didn't really find them that entertaining. One character in particular, Kevin Hart, voices a bunny named Snowball. Now, I've been waiting to talk about this guy because I mentioned in my Central Intelligence review that I think Kevin Hart, that's his best role, because he dialed down the Kevin Hart mannerisms. But I also mentioned in that review that I had not seen this movie yet, and maybe this could be his best role. Central Intelligence is still Kevin Hart's best role, because in this movie, He pretty much does exactly what I find annoying about Kevin Hart in movies. He screams, he yells, he whines and cries at the top of his lungs, and after a while, it just really got under my skin. At first, when they showed him, I was like, okay, maybe I can get behind this guy, but then as soon as the Kevin Hart mannerisms kicked in, I was like, oh, here we go. However, the kids in my theater laughed hysterically at Snowball. Kids will find Snowball to be the highlight of this movie. Heck, even some parents were laughing at Snowball. So really, I guess if you like Kevin Hart screaming at the top of his lungs and crying a lot, usually what he does in all his movies, then most likely you might like Snowball in the movie. If you're a guy like me who doesn't want Kevin Hart to scream at the top of his lungs in every scene he's in, then you will probably hate Snowball like I did. Speaking of laughter, the kids in my theater, as I mentioned, they laughed at pretty much every single joke that was told in this movie. The best reaction I got out of this movie was a chuckle. I'm not kidding. I pretty much just chuckled at some of the jokes in this movie, and then other parts I just stared at the screen stone-faced the whole time. I just didn't really find this movie all that funny. It's not that the humor's annoying or anything, that's just Kevin Hart, it's just I couldn't laugh at it. It just wasn't enough to make me laugh. It wasn't really that clever. At one point, Louis C.K. is complaining to Chloe the cat, like, oh, Duke took my bed, I was sleeping on the floor, like a dog. And another scene, Kevin Hart as Snowball is driving a bus and Max complains, you're driving like an animal! It's pretty much simple humor like that throughout the whole movie that tries to be clever but isn't really that clever. Now, my last flaw with this movie, I know, a lot of people have mentioned this already, but it's the truth. This movie borrows a lot of elements from Toy Story. And it's fine if they want to take an idea that already exists, as long as they make it their own, do something new with it. Changing the characters from toys to animals is not enough. Unfortunately, that's exactly what this movie just did. They changed the characters from toys to animals and pretty much just borrowed all these elements from Toy Story, which made me able to predict what was going to happen in the other scenes. I'm really just bummed out because I think they could have done a lot more with this kind of premise. I think it could have been way funnier. I think it could have been a little bit more original. Unfortunately, I didn't get that. I got a experience with this movie. Overall, I'm gonna give The Secret Life of Pets a C. Younger kids will love this movie. That is just a fact. There's no denying it. I think parents won't hate themselves while watching this movie. I didn't hate myself while watching it. It's just, there are some things that disappointed me with this movie. But if you saw The Secret Life of Pets, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.